I grew up in the northeast of England and went to a parish church in South Shields, Old St Mary's, and we had a curate there once who was before my time, but his name was Philip Strong. And Philip Strong then went from St Mary's down to another parish, and then he eventually went off with the missionaries and went to Papua New Guinea. And Bishop Strong was the bishop there in Papua New Guinea. He was there during the war, and there's lots of stories about what happened, you know. He was the person to be shot at by the Japanese when they came to get into Papua New Guinea. And so every time he came on vocation, Philip Strong would come back to St Mary's, and so we would see him. So there was a link with all the people who I knew there and with Philip Strong, and we would see him. And anybody who's met him, he was a very, very sort of active preacher. He'd be in the pulpit, you see, with his white robes on and sort of be flapping about like this, and you'd think he was going to fall over the top of the pulpit. But Philip Strong did a tremendous work in Papua New Guinea, and then he decided to stay, and he really got nearly all the missionaries to stay when the Japanese invaded Papua New Guinea. And this is one of the big things that happened there. And as far as the stories go, he was on his little boat, which is called St. George, I think. Yeah, St. George. And you're sailing up the coast, and the first Japanese planes to come and attack Papua New Guinea shot his boat. I mean, nobody was killed or hurt, but they got bullet holes in it. So in a way, he was one of the first targets. And he stayed there most of the time, and and said, if we're missionaries, we came from a mission, we don't run away when people are in danger. We stay with them. And this is very much his. The sad part was there was lots of missionaries killed, but I think it also was a message to the whole Anglican Church that, if you have a mission, then you stay in that mission and you complete it. And it was a great challenge. And I think Philip Strong was absolutely delighted that he was the first target, and St. George got bullet holes in it from the attack. Papua New Guinea had missionaries for quite a few years, you see, and he was down in Dagura and there was other places. I think there wasn't quite so much up in the north part of the country. But I know from being about 12 or 13, we had a box in the house, and every weekend I used to put what pocket money I had left, and people put it in, you see, and this money would go once a year to the New Guinea mission, which would be sent out to Papua New Guinea, you see. But those days it was just New Guinea because the country was divided. And so that was a great link, and he had a great link with various other people, and I think he also had a link with the Franciscans, because he was the same kind of churchmanship. He was this probably went to the same college and that sort of thing, and so he invited the brothers to come out and work, and so there was a group of brothers came out and started a place in Port Moresby, and that's where they started there, and then and supported by him, and then gradually they grew and went into Pomandetta and where the present brothers are. They also eventually went up into the highlands as well. When I came out to this part of the world, the first place I went to was Corky, And there we had a very interesting, I thought it was a very good system, because there was a school there, and there's the church above it, and at least 2 or 3 times a week we had the van to go out to visit people, you see. So you had the same kind of ministry in the visiting as we do eventually in the Solomons, was that we would drive the car into an area, one of these areas on the outskirts of Port Moresby, park the car, and then we'd go walk about. We knew certain people to visit, but then other people who had problems or wanted a story, they would come and see us as well. So it was a question of just moving about with the people and being identified. And it was, quite a good ministry. There was also ministry in the hospital. The hospital in Port Moresby was a funny place, because you'd go into the hospital and you didn't quite know who was the sick person, because quite often, because the relatives of the sick person would visit them, would bring food for them, but sometimes they would be sleeping in the bed and the sick person would be lying on the floor. So you had to be careful who you thought was the one that was sick. It was I really think it was an eye-opener to me, because hospitals I'd visited in England were very sort of private places in a way. You didn't really sort of get down to the nitty-gritty of the work that was going on. But in Moresby it was obvious that there was the care was there. But one of the things that I couldn't understand, you weren't sure who was the patient, either the one in the bed or the one sleeping on the floor. But that's beside the point. The other thing we did there was prison work. Again, we used to go to the prison there, and in those days it was quite a rough place, the prison. It's much better these days, but it was at the time the Australian type prison, it was very tough. And again, the thing I found interesting was that we were always welcome, and people would be happy to story with you. And I suppose that was partly because the message we seemed to give was that we cared, and that we were interested in that person. We were interested in what was happening to them. They're sick, and we said, yes, well, we sympathise with the sick, but sort of know, how are you getting on? Trying to, in a way, trying to comfort and walk with that person on their journey. And the same goes with the prison as well. The mental hospital wasn't quite so easy. That was a bit harder work, but we had all these things, various things to do. It was interesting because I don't know if anybody's been to Corky here, but the church in Corky was up on the hill overlooking Corky Market, and this market was down below and on a big bay, and those ships would come in, and there was always something going on there, and quite often there was a fight. And if there was a fight going on, we would put our habits on and line all the children up and march them down. This is at the end of school, to Corky Market, because the buses were at the far side, and the fighting would stop and they would separate, and they would let the children go through and get on the bus and then come back, you see. And then I must say that the last time I was in Papua New Guinea and I saw that, they didn't stop to let the kids go through. The fight went on. It was a bit, But I know there was a care and respect for the children and people and their well-being. I must say I enjoyed living in Moresby, and then it was always something happening, and there was a funny little cinema down below which was very cheap, so we only got 20 cents pocket money for brothers, so we go down there and 20 cents would get you into this Kopi thing. It was a open air, just a fence around it, open air thing, and you paid your 20 cents and you went in, and that was it. So, but it was a good Friday night entertainment. From there I went to Popendetta, and in the early days it was very, very active, because there was on that whole area there was the brothers at the bottom end, there were sisters further down, almost close to the town, and then there was the training college for clergy, which eventually moved from there a little bit further down. But it was all very active. This was in the 70s when I first went there. It changed a bit later on, because I think there was maybe some land troubles as well. But I always found that it was, again, good place to be, and the people were always friendly, and after I came to Solomon's, and then I was here about 10 years, then went back again, and we went to Popendetta, and we were running there was a store and a film show thing at the community centre, and we were running that, and that again was a very good ministry. And I think the ministries in both these places and both occasions was really living with the people, talking to them, sharing what was happening, going in the hospital, and not just rushing in and saying, "Oh, give you a blessing," and rushing out, but really talking to people and sharing in what was happening. And I think that's one of the important things, that you don't just mouthwater at someone, but you really share their problem, share what's happening to them, in a way, walk with them on their journey. And I think that's the thing that I think I got out of the hospital work and the prison work, that you don't go as some fella big manual, but you just go there as someone who is wanting to talk to them, wanting to share, and not say, "Oh, you haven't done anything wrong," but not condemn them. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yes, and so I found that very good. I wasn't there all that long, so it was only the first time a year, and then Brother Jeffrey said to me, "Oh, Bishop Chisholm wants to start a house of brothers and sisters in Solomon Islands," and Jeffrey and I flew across, and at that time they just dug the foundations of Patterson House, and we had this little wooden house above, which is gone now. There's a big, huge building on this place now, and I always remember how I annoyed Jeffrey, because Jeffrey, we came in, got into the car, and he said, "Now, how much money have you got?" I said, "I got no money." That just came from thing. "Well, I haven't got it. That's all I've got." He said, and he put a few things on the bench, and he said, "We have to go and get some shopping to get something to eat." So we go out, and got some things, you see, and come back, and he sort of thought, "Oh, that's that." Then he said, "And that's coffee, and that costs $10. That's tea, that only costs $2. And I said, "Oh, you want a cup of coffee now?" Maybe you got good costs. But it was, we were just starting off, and we actually started with nothing. We came in, and literally, I had no money at all with me, and Jeffrey had this little bit of money, and then, and so we started here, and so in a way we didn't come with like a shilling or something like that, but we came and we lived with the people, and so the first thing we do is sort of get to know people and walk about. The services at first, there was the old cathedral, which they closed and built a new one, down at opposite the hospital, and the half of the cathedral had been taken out, and they were starting to build that big store that's got there now. And so there was just a tiny little bit of the cathedral and the altar, and that's where we used to worship in there for the first few months. But again, it was all very good. Anybody want to ask anything about what I've said?
Yeah. What year?
What year? 71. That's right?
Or 70?
70 or 71.
Because I think the dedication of Patterson House was January 1971.
Oh, well, it was 70 then.
So 1970. But why did we go to the Solomons? I mean, why not Fiji or somewhere else?
Well, John Chisholm was a friend.
Right. Did we have were there some Solomon Islanders joining SSF and PNG at that time?
Yes.
So who were those brothers?
Well, you see, what happened was there was Tassil in Solomon Islands and in PNG. And so there's Michael Davis. It was one famous one. Very good man. In fact, he was the guardian when we started in Honiara. And there was also brothers from Torres Strait Islands. They're very, very close to PNG. The Melanesian brothers had been up in the highlands of Australia. And so Michael had come down and he'd become a Franciscan. I think he'd been down to Brisbane first. Yeah.
Philip Strong is also a friend of brothers from England.
Oh yeah, the parish I grew up in, he was a priest there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Not in my time, but in that. And he was the one that asked for people to come. There's lots of stories about him and his funny little thing.
So you'd arrived in Patterson House. You were living in an old wooden building where the Diocese of Central Melanesia headquarters are now, somewhere up there.
Yeah, the little house. It really was it had been some sort of place for people coming off the ships.
Yeah.
And there was a wooden house here, then there was a cement house, which was like just one big room. And I think there used to be, women used to come from the ships and you could sleep in there. Yeah.
So there was a plan there for sisters as well to come.
And they came 6 months afterwards.
Yeah.
So by that time the house was built. But the interesting thing was, you see, and you won't find in many places, that we had a house with a dining room, all those sort of things. Then you had a brother's residence here, sister's residence here, and so for the first few years, and I really found it much easier then and better then, we mixed. And then the sisters that said, oh well, we need to be separate because, for example, people don't like their daughters to come to a house which is, with men in close contact like that, you see. So that's why they built the wall and took half of the dining room for the sisters. But in our time, they're always very friendly and work together. This is why, no, shut up. Yeah. Well, it was. I mean, the thing was in those days as well. Sister Helen, she was older, very old, much older. Yes, but we used to go to the King George School and to the what they call it. I'm trying to think what it's called now. Yeah. Anyway, I spun. No, not Nicholas, but the technical.
What's now the university?
Yeah, what's now? Yeah, we used to go up there, those two places. I went to Renade, but then as well, you see, we also had four brothers. Kabe did very big ministry at Lunga. Then you
Lunga, what is doing?
Eh?
Kabe.
Kabe.
What name doing? What kind of ministry now?
With the people.
Oh.
He was used to take, because he was priest.
Oh.
He took Sunday services and visited and looked after that ministry there. Then, as I say, the prison. Then, but we divided up into areas. You see. I hope I'm not getting into any next subject, but the policy was, you see. Right, I'll tell you for myself. I used to go to Muganavera, and I would go on a motorbike or later on it was a car. We'd park it, and then you'd walk in the street. You'd know a few people, and you would knock on the door and say hello to them, and then people would come and talk to you, see. But you walked about with the people, and I think that's, if you don't know people, that's the only way you'll get to know them, if you with them and doing things with them. And you see, I was amazed about 2 or 3 months ago when I was in this place at one of these resort places where it was a holiday having, and the church, and there was a woman from Solomon's sitting just ahead of me, and the daughter, and again, because the daughter was married to someone, and I didn't realize who it was. But then later on, when the service finished, there was someone who I used to visit all the time in Boganavera. So it's strange how you meet people in different places. But the important thing is knock on the door, say hello, but just it's not something special. It's just being there and allowing people to say, "Oh yes, I want to talk to you," and not get upset if they say, "Oh no, me no sorry, talk at this time or something." Yeah. But if you're there, you're available. And I think that is the first thing that we're not sort of people who are too busy all the time, but we're available to be with people and to share their problems, to share their joys. I still remember the thing I was telling. Was I talking to you about the bishop's laundry that broke?
Yes. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. That's a good story.
The Bishop John, his laundry at down the Bishopdale had burnt through, and he couldn't get any hot water to boil his laundry. You see, so he came to me and he says, "Oh, this is pipe him no good, yeah, and burn out now." So it's all right. We go and buy some. So we went and we got some pipe, and took this pipe off. And then I said, "Oh, you'll have to lower it from the top." So he climbed on the top of this small roof, lowering down the pipe, and I'm in the corner putting this pipe onto the thing, fastening it, and whatever. Then we had an earthquake. But I was on the floor, so I didn't feel the earthquake. Just the thing started hitting me, you see, and then the thing started banging my head. And the bishop was hanging on to it on the top of the roof, and he'd been falling off, you see. And I'm saying to him, "Hold that bloody thing still, will you, man?" And then the earthquake stopped, and he comes off and he says, "Oh, you've got no compassion." And then all his people who did the gardening and cooking about said, "We never had anybody swear at the bishop like that." So we used to have funny times as well.
What would be a normal working week for you in those early days from Patterson House? Did you have a program each week to do different ministries?
It's, well, as I said before, prison was Saturday, and Sunday evening would be movie for the prison, because we took communion there, and then movie, and then various parishes, because we had a couple of parishes that there was one just past Bishopsdale, so halfway along here. I think it was a plantation. Monday was the meeting. Monday evening was the meeting with all of the, because there the whole ministry in the town was one. So again, it was school ministry, and then probably Lord House settlement and those things. So each place had a different name. We went to Randi, Technical College. So there wasn't many places that we didn't go to, but each day had a set program, and often with the visiting there would be a brother and sister who would go and bring together, you see, and the pattern, as I say, would say Boganavera, you would drive the car in or a motorbike, park it, and then go from door to door, and you then made friends and chat to people. But it was, the great thing was is everyone was open to talk. And you say, oh yeah, come, you told you.
What now you think Chisum was there in mind, and then invite him, brothers come Lohonyara. Or Chisum or Minus?
Yeah,
Chisum.
Yeah. He had been, when he was ordained in England, although he comes from Melbourne, and so he'd seen the new various people, and he knew the brothers' work in ministry. So he just, yes. And I think his idea was, well, we're looking at his idea now.
My question, how did Bishop Chisholm, those Franciscans, then decided to invite them?
Bishop Chisholm, as I said, did some training in England. There he knew Father Algie, and he knew the Franciscans. So he saw, and I'm trying to remember the place he worked in, but one of the London parishes. And at that time we had, well, we still do, we had a parish in London. So that was the way it came from. How shall I put it now? The church in England is a little bit different to the church in Solomon. Church in Solomon is the Anglican Church in Solomons, and everything is the same. In England, you have the Church of England, and then you've got some who are what they call very high church, some who are very low church, some who are in the middle, and so they tend to meet together. And so the people who have the same kind of worship as Solomon Islands would be were the ones like Franciscans and Archbishop Strong. And, yeah.
So strong and not but they have the high church people, or what do you say, Bamidu, or what? The local.
Oh, I think I think it's better rather than say high and low. They would be have a more Catholic, Catholic, which Catholic is a sort of wider meaning. Yeah. That didn't say they didn't go into the other churches, because the where the friary is at Hillfield. Most of the village churches are different kind of churchmanship, but we go and take services there. And the people are all good friends and support us.
So was Michael Davis the first Solomon Islander to join?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and because he had been what they call it, one of the member of the Brotherhood,
Yes.
Melanesian Brotherhood.
Yeah. So what was his character like?
What was his character like?
Yes. What was he like as a brother? Because no one here knew. We got another Michael Davis here. We got his namesake, but no one knew original Michael Davis. He was before your time, before Clifton's time. Yeah. You know him. Yeah.
Well, I mean, he was typical from someone from Malawi, short and plump. He was always good fun. He was very good. Let's see. All right, 3 of us, Michael Davis, Kabe and myself, 3 motorbikes going up to Boganavera. I go up. Kabe goes up. Michael Davis. He never learned to drive. He wasn't mechanical at all. But as a person and storying with him, he was top down. And his way of being the guardian was very good. And very welcoming.
So you talked about establishing Patterson House as being very open and like drop-in and so on as part of your deliberate ministry.
Yes, but we didn't encourage it to be a place for them to sleep on the floor. And there wasn't anybody wanting to sleep on the floor. I think if we had starting now, and Patterson House was just opening now, there would not be much difference to the way the brothers do it now, because it's I mean, we had very few who come. They would come in, have drink water or something, or Sunday, then go out. But if someone needed to stay, they could stay. But there wasn't people sleeping all about, and it was maybe it was because there was more dim-dims in there.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't argue if that's if the brothers want to have people sleeping in the dining room at nights, then that's all right. But it's it wasn't something that was needed because there wasn't that many new around town at that time, and there was other places where they could stay. Now, Manihara is full of business houses and shops and something. It's a very difficult place. So I think probably if we are just starting now, I think maybe it will be exactly the same as it is.
So who were some of the other Solomon Islanders who began to join around that time?
I'm thinking of all the dead. Yeah, let me think. There was one came over to, what's his name? I forget names, that's the trouble, too old. course, there was.
We can think of some of them.
Can you think of some?
Cummins, when did he join?
Cummins was then, and because he came out to, he was in PNG,
Yeah.
and then came back. Then our big man from Holland, he was there and then came back here. There was quite a few went over to.
Then after that, then Bruno Moore, then from Chicopia,
Yeah.
and then Francis George,
Yes.
then JJ, then that's Natu,
Yeah.
Philip Natu.
But they
Yes,
who
we
started there. Yeah.
We have a street that says Augustine was one of them, was the first Franciscans.
Who?
Augustine from Sabe.
Augustine from Isabel. Oh yes, yeah. You said him. What was his name? It wasn't straight Augustine. It was something else.
JJ, I said Joseph General. He was a pater. He's
Yeah.
still a pater.
Yeah.
But no, that's Augustine.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of Augustine. Maybe he was when I was not there.
If Agustin Rubaha, that's his recently.
Oh, I think I know who you mean. Short man. No?
I didn't see him, so I don't know much.
Ah.
The side history says that Augustine and the other one from, I don't know. They were two from Isabel.
Yeah.
They were the first ones after when you arrived here.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember. Oh yes, Augustine, but that wasn't his fault. I think he came from on top. Yeah. Yes. What do you call it? Hograna.
Maring Highland.
Hograna side. Yeah. Yeah, short fella man from Isabel.
Well, who were some of the expat brothers there? You mentioned Jeffrey, who was minister then, wasn't
Yes,
he? But
yes.
he was more in PNG, but visiting.
No, by the time we got there, he was the Minister General.
And then Minister General,
Yeah.
yeah. And Gerard.
Gerard, yeah.
Yeah.
Gerard was one of the first ones,
Mm.
the first four people who were there. I'm trying to think. You forget names, yeah. There was some would come for a short time and then go away, yeah. And then my problem was I after a while I went to, well, after 10 years, it was Jeffrey Leonard. Oh, my own brother.
Jeffrey Leonard.
No, my own brother, Liam.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because my brother just dropped off.